The ASEAN Declaration or Bangkok Declaration of 1967. The ASEAN Declaration is the founding document of Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN. It was signed in Bangkok on August 8, 1967 by the 5 ASEAN founding members, namely Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. The historical background of ASEAN Declaration. In 1967, Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines, Singapore, and Malaysia founded ASEAN. The aim was to improve economic, political, and social cooperation. Another objective was to balance political conflicts between these countries that existed as a consequence of decolonization and post-colonial state building. In the second half of the 1990s, old enemies became new partners. Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia joined ASEAN. There are 5 original signatories of the ASEAN Declaration. These are the following: Indonesia through its Minister for Foreign Affairs, Malaysia through its Deputy Prime Minister, Philippines through its Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Singapore through its Minister for Foreign Affairs, and Thailand through its Minister for Foreign Affairs. And the subsequent signatories of the ASEAN Declaration are the following: Brunei, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, completing the current 10 members of the ASEAN. The ASEAN Declaration states that the aims and purposes of the association are to accelerate the economic growth, social progress, and cultural development in the region through joint endeavors in the spirit of equality and partnership in order to strengthen the foundation for a prosperous and peaceful community of Southeast Asian nations, to promote regional peace and stability through providing respect for justice and the rule of law in the relationship among countries of the region and adherence to the principles of the United Nations Charter, to promote active collaboration and mutual assistance on matters of common interest in the economic, social, cultural, technical, scientific, and administrative fields, to provide assistance to each other in the form of training and research facilities in the educational, professional, technical, and administrative spheres, to collaborate more effectively for the greater utilization of their agriculture and industry, the expansion of their trade, including the study of the problems and international commodity trade, the improvement of their transportation and communications facilities, and the raising of the living standards of their peoples, to promote Southeast Asian studies, and to maintain close and beneficial cooperation with existing international and regional organizations with similar aims and purposes. The ASEAN member states have adopted the following fundamental principles as contained in the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia of 1976. These are the following: the right of every state to lead its national existence free from external interference, subversion, or coercion, non-interference in the internal affairs of one another, settlement of differences or disputes by peaceful manner, renunciation of the threat or use of force, and effective cooperation among themselves. The significance of Declaration to the Philippines. ASEAN Declaration is one of the cornerstones of the Philippines' foreign and trade policies. This is manifested in the Philippines' policy to promote a more peaceful, stable, and free Southeast Asia through the pursuit of different initiatives in the policymaking, economic, trading, and functional cooperation activities. Alongside the multilateral framework in the conduct of Philippine-ASEAN relations, there is also a strengthening of the bilateral and trading ties with fellow member states that happens in parallel. There is a convergence of national interests, specifically in the traditional security issues which could be brought about by perceived common threat in the regional environment. For example, the Philippines and Vietnam have elevated their bilateral ties to that of a strategic partnership. In a statement released by the Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs following the conclusion of the first meeting of Philippines-Vietnam Joint Commission on concluding a strategic partnership, the two sides, on the basis of amity, mutual respect, and cooperation, the bilateral relations are growing in various aspects, including in political, trade and investment, fisheries, marine and oceanic affairs, defense, and security cooperation, among others. The improvement in the relations between the Philippines and Vietnam is worth noting, given the minimal interaction in the past. This was originally due to the fact that both countries were members of ASEAN with same problems. Consequently, trading relationship or relations between the two countries have also improved. What is the impact of ASEAN Declaration to the international community? The impact of ASEAN Declaration to the international community is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, has become one of the most important players in the global trading system. Comprising 10 countries with very diverse income levels, ASEAN is now the world's fifth largest economy and plays a central role in the so-called Factory Asia. Criticisms or challenges about the treaty or ASEAN Declaration. Internal challenges. One of the most serious obstacles to ASEAN integration is unresolved territorial disputes between member countries. Forum participants doubted that these disputes will be addressed comprehensively given the historical reluctance of ASEAN countries to discuss matters they describe as internal affairs. ASEAN's consensus approach to decision-making, whereby a country can prevent the passage of a proposal if it disagrees with it, is highly inefficient when trying to reform the organization. This difficulty is compounded by the political instability and social upheaval within many of the member countries that rule the third wave of democratization. External challenges. Participants identified three external challenges facing ASEAN, namely globalization, regional imbalances, and a lack of engagement mechanisms. Many speakers contended that ASEAN's development necessarily carries with it the drawbacks of globalization. For instance, rapid regional development has led to fierce competition between ASEAN countries. Others urged ASEAN countries already involved in international banking and foreign investment to strengthen their financial capabilities to avoid meeting the same fate as East Asian countries that were embroiled in the ASEAN financial crisis of the late 1990s. Current and significant news articles about the treaty, ASEAN and the US-China rivalry in the Indo-Pacific. Many nations face a dilemma as they are caught in the rivalry between the United States and China and come under pressure to choose sides. Is there a consensus with ASEAN on how ASEAN as a whole should relate to the United States and China? Or do individual ASEAN member states pursue their own interests and policies? Many have the view that ASEAN and individual member states would not want to choose sides. There is generally a consensus that ASEAN and its members should maintain a neutral stance so that they can benefit from their relationships with both great powers. However, if the US-China rivalry intensifies to the point that they will force regional countries to choose sides, individual countries will have to do whatever is relevant to protect their national interests.